still with us, Governor Bill Richardson and Colonel Jack Jacobs. Colonel Jacobs, let me ask you, I've heard from across the political spectrum support for the president voicing the U.S. government's support for the Iranian people, which has been U.S. policy throughout the last, throughout Democratic and Republican presidents. But I have to assume that if it were as simple as simply tweeting our support, someone would have done it before and it would have worked.
You know, we ought to look what happened in 2009. There were 1 million people in the streets. The President of the United States said, they're tweeting, they have the internet. Now is the revolution in Iran. The first day, there were 1 million people in the streets. And the government caved in a few skulls and killed a bunch of people. The next day, there were 5,000. And the day after that, there were 0. And this revolution, tweeting or not, is headed in the same direction.
Governor, you are also, among your many responsibilities, you're on the board of United Against Nuclear Iran, and you and I have had a lot of conversations about what do we do about Iran. And I wonder if you can speak to the distance between what the people want, why they're protesting, and a government that is not in defense of the Trump administration, but at least to help explain the Trump administration's posture, very hostile to American national security interests and hostile to the desires of many of its own citizens.
Well, it's clear that these demonstrations are broad-based. They're rural and urban areas. They're talking about corruption, the economy. They're talking about against the Islamic Republic, against the involvement in Syria. This is a broad-based democratic movement. And I think it's important that the United States stand behind these protesters. What would I do? One, be very vocal, as we have been, in support of this democracy movement. Secondly, go to the United Nations, see if there's some way we can get some protections for some of these protesters. Third, try to get internet, Facebook, as much social media access to these protesters. And then lastly, I think we've got to find a way to get the Europeans who collaborated with us on this nuclear agreement, which I think, Nicole, we should keep. Because if we take it off the table and get out of it, it's going to give the Iranian government an excuse saying, see, it's the Americans that are causing these demonstrations, when it's not. This is a self-made democracy movement, and it's very significant. And it's against all of the foreign policy adventures that Iran is making in Yemen, in Syria with Assad, helping terrorist movements. So we should just let this move forward, but associate ourselves with this democracy movement.
All right, Governor Bill Richardson and Colonel Jack Jacobs.